Hi, everyone. My name is Darlene Arneson. I serve as the District 5 Sons of Norway Secretary, and I also chair the Zone Alignment Committee. And we have been going through a process the last year and a half, close to 2 years now, where we have been looking at our current zone structure that we have in District 5. We have 6 zones. That's what our district is made up into. Our district, again, is Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Tennessee. And what we have found is that as we have lodge changes, lodges closing, some merging, some forming, that we have quite a discrepancy in the number of lodges in a zone and what the zone directors need to do as far as covering those lodges, visiting them, the miles and the distance in between the lodges. And we wanted to take a look at that and just see what we could do to help improve that. So this is a process that was looked at probably 6-7 years ago as well. Every time we've kind of looked at redoing the zones, it was a number of years ago. We used to have 7 sub-districts in our district, and then they eliminated sub-district 7 and went to 6, and now we went from sub-districts to zones. So basically it's a unit within our district, or within our District 5. It gives the zones an ability to work together, to be able to do some leadership training, to do zone activities together. Each zone has 2 zone directors, and so they help to work with the lodges within their area, helping them where they need to visit them, to install officers, to provide whatever type of support and so on that's needed. And so what we did in this last round, we were kind of gifted a period of time with the pandemic and the cancellation of the 2020 District Lodge meeting and International Lodge meeting. All the district board positions and so forth were extended to 2022. So that also means that the members who served as delegates to the 2018 District Lodge meeting in La Crosse continue on as the District Lodge members until the new delegates are seated in 2022. And so any business that typically is handled at a District Lodge meeting, which includes passage of bylaws and so forth, has to be done currently by those people who served as delegates in 2018. They are called the District Lodge members. So we thought, since we have kind of this time period, we would take a look at some of the ways that we can address some of these discrepancies and see if we can make some improvements and so on. We also, in the last number of years, Sons of Norway has instituted the nominating committee process. And so that kind of complicates things a little bit if we're looking at any major restructuring of zones, because nominating committees are always elected in the spring of the non-convention year. And so when we're looking ahead to June of 2022 as when our next District Lodge meeting will be, the nominating committee will be elected at the spring board meeting in 2021. And they will start their work of looking at who's on the board, who may be continuing, who wants to continue in their positions, what zones are they from, what officer positions are they interested in, because at the District Lodge meeting, when we are electing, every zone can have 2 directors, and a director can also serve as an officer, but they can't continue in the same position as an officer or as a zone director for 2 consecutive terms. Now, they're gifted during this pandemic just because the ones elected in 2020 or 2018 are continuing on till 2022. That's counting as 1 4-year term. It's not counting against the 2 terms that they can serve. Well, anyway, what happens then when we get to the District Lodge meeting is we elect the officers first before they go to caucus. The only 2 officer positions that do not count as a zone director or count against the zones are the district secretary and treasurer. So I don't represent a zone, and neither does Mike Pelichek. And I, as district secretary, can also have unlimited terms, as does the treasurer. And so, so that we're a little unique on that. So when they start with the president, vice president, moving down, to the other positions, once 2 officer positions are filled from one zone, that zone won't need to elect any other zone directors. So we also thought that this is a good time to take a look at this zone alignment, because however it comes out if our 2018 delegates, the district lodge decides to implement a new zone structure, that nominating committee, when elected in spring of 2021, will know what they'll be working with. So I wanted to give you some background. We're having a conference call on this Saturday, October 24th, where people can ask questions and talk about it and so on. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background. So the committee's work started about 1.5 years ago. We have done 2 major surveys within the district. We utilize the officer lists. We utilize the Friendly Fifth Friday news that comes out every Friday, and that's posted on the district website for everyone to see. We have asked our zone directors and the district board officers to be gaining input and talking about it with the lodges that they represent. So we went through the first survey and had some really good feedback and a lot of ideas and suggestions and what ifs, and really got a good feel for how people connected to their zones, and did they feel an affiliation? Did they feel they benefited? What would they like to see, and so on? And then the committee discussed this with the board last spring, and we hashed out a lot of the details and discussion and some of the points that came up. The committee then met over the summer several times, and we came up with 6 different options, 5 new kind of reorganization of the different lodges and zones and so forth, and the other option was to leave things the way they were. And we sent that out as well after the fall board, or prior to the fall board meeting, so that we could get input. The committee met again a couple times, and we narrowed down the feedback and so forth to 2 options that the committee really that had the most votes, that had the most discussion, that people had, it seemed to be less issues with, and so on. We made a couple tweaks, and we came forward to the fall board meeting now earlier this month, and presented a bylaw proposal to the board. So that's what I want to go over. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we are going to take a look at what we have. So currently, this is what the district bylaws show. So we are in Article 6 under zones, and this is where we find in paragraph 2 the descriptions of the zones. So there's going to be 2 bylaw proposals that we are going to discuss on Saturday, and then use the next month for lodges to visit about it, and then take it to those that the current district lodge members for a vote. And so currently, if a lodge closes or merges or is formed and so on, we don't change the bylaws until the district lodge meeting. So even if it happens right after a district convention, or we know that it's going to happen, we don't make those changes until the next district lodge meeting. So I have one bylaw proposal that I call the cleanup one. That's the things that have happened. It's what's gone on in our district, but we need to change it in the bylaws. And again, the district lodge members are the ones that need to do that. So this is a section that we're really focusing on. And so basically we have 2 proposals. The first one is this cleanups one. And there's a new format for doing bylaws and resolutions that was started by or developed by the International, and they'd like all the districts to be using it. So I use this format, whereas we give what the current state is, or what our current zones are, and then the reasons for why we want to change. So basically in this category, and I'm going to expand this so you can see it a little bit better. We had Sholand, Haversfjord lodges that closed, and Samhold that merged into another lodge. So they have disbanded. They no longer need to be listed in the bylaws. And we also had Shawnee Skogan, which was instituted. So the proposal that we have is basically cleaning these up. So we're taking out Sholand, we're taking out Haversfjord, we took out Samhold, and we added Shawnee Skogan. But we have an asterisk by Shawnee-Scogan, because currently Shawnee-Scogan is located in Zone 6. That's where the district president assigned it to be when they formed, and again, until the district lodge delegates and members vote on it, it kind of is in a temporary holding point. But in our proposal for the whole realignment, kind of the major realignment, Shawnee-Scogan is actually going to be in Zone 5. So I ran this past our parliamentarian, and he said the wording is okay, that we could put that if bylaw proposal number 2 passes, Shawnee-Scogan then would be in Zone 5. If it fails, Shawnee-Scogan would remain in Zone 6. So that's the first proposal. Basically, again, it's a cleanup proposal. So I don't envision any issues with this, and that hopefully it will pass. It's what's happened, and again, it's basically cleaning up our bylaws. So the second one, though, is the zone alignment, the major zone alignment. And again, we list what the current zones are and so forth, and then basically why we want to be changing these. So I'm going to go through those points again. So we have had surveys and communications with lodges and lodge members for the past 18 months. We have, the strength of our district comes from strong local lodges who are growing and vibrant and offering activities and events. It's been very challenging in our zones due to the logistical differences between the lodges, between zone directors and so on. And so we want to make these changes. And it used to be years and years ago when we had a lot of lodges in the district, they would also look at the membership numbers so that a zone would have equal numbers of members. But as we talked to the current board members and zone directors and past ones, we asked if it's a whole lot different representing a lodge that has 50 members versus one that has 250. And really it isn't a whole lot. Sometimes it's more work with the smaller lodges and so on, because they may be needing some assistance in membership or recruitment or retention. And so the numbers, the actual membership numbers weren't really a big factor as we looked at the survey responses and so on. It was more logistically where they're located. And so basically what we're proposing is that we act on this zone bylaw proposal, that it be approved in the fall or in early winter of 2020, so that the new lodge assignments would be known to the nominating committee when it's elected in 2021 as they start their work, and that the new alignment wouldn't take place or wouldn't go into effect until when the officers are being elected at the 2022 district lodge meeting, which typically is on Saturday morning. And so the reason for this is that currently how the board is structured and following our bylaws of 2 directors or officers from a zone, except for secretary and treasurer, we didn't want to mix that up halfway through, whereas if this passed and took immediate effect, we'd have to look at some board changes and so on. And we wanted to keep the board as it was. And so this would give everyone time to get used to what the zones would look like. It would give the nominating committee time to function, as well as getting it in kind of in our heads as far as the zones as well. So basically what I've done then is listed what the new zones will look like. We also have them in another handout that shows kind of how many times you see them. And one thing to keep in mind is the zones, when we list them in the columns, that comes, it starts out as from the lodge assignment publication or document. And that's where the district president assigns to the directors what lodges they'll represent. So each one has like 3 or 4 or 5. Right now in zone 6, some of them have more than that. And we have some zones that they only have a couple per zone director. And so when we have been proposing this, we've left them in the column format, but keep in mind, it doesn't mean that they're going to be mixed, or stay in this order. They may be realigned. If we have, let's say zone you know, if you have an officer or a director who comes from Tryggvason and one from Fagerness, obviously you'd look at what would be equal, and the presidents kind of go through a process of asking the new board what lodges would they like to represent. Some like to represent their own, some don't, and so forth. So it may not look like this in the columns, but the key is what lodges are in what zones. So we use some maps. We would plot down on the maps where these lodges are and draw boundaries and so forth. And I encourage people to do that before the meeting on Saturday. I'm going to do that as well so that we have a document for you to look at. Probably the one that is the most unique, and actually this is the proposal that got the most votes and so forth, is one that they really liked. We actually, in the initial one, if you look at zone 3 on the right hand side, Vachertland down at the bottom was actually up in zone 2 with Viroqua and Westby and Wisconsin Rapids, but they asked to be with the Madison lodges, and we had several requests on that and so forth. So we did make that adjustment. But zone 3 is kind of interesting because we had that Madison area and then going up to the Dells, and then we kind of sneak over to the Fox Valley, and Ulseth Lodge and Calumet, we had just a few responses back from them on the surveys. They are in a very unique position right now. They're up in zone 1, but they are a long ways from everybody. And actually, when we did the mileage, and we had one of the board members who kind of plotted in how many miles between them and so forth, mileage wise, they really fit in well with that Green Bay Appleton area. So that's probably our most unique looking zone and so forth. But this is what we have for what we're looking at. The time frame again for this and what we're proposing is we discussed it at the district board meeting, and we ran it past the district board to get their input, or if they thought it looked okay and so on. Last week we shared it in the Friday news. We are going to be emailing it to all the lodge officers. They also get emailed the link to the Friday news, and then I'll be in touch with the district lodge members, those 2018 delegates. This week we wanted to schedule a Zoom meeting for people to ask questions and so forth. We are going to have it this Saturday at 9 o'clock. Based on the discussion there, that will give us some really good feedback on what the next step is. But what the committee was hoping is that if we have positive feedback on moving forward with this, that those 2018 delegates or the current district lodge members could use the rest of October and November to talk to their lodges, to see what they think, to get members' input and so on. Because when the final votes are put out, it's going to be those 2018 delegates who are voting. So they're the only ones who make up that district lodge. So we wanted to give them plenty of time to touch base with their lodges and to talk maybe to the current board members or whoever about what they thought about it and so forth. And then we're going to get that feedback back, and then on December 7th, we will send out the ballots to the district lodge members, give them until the 11th to vote, and they'll be voting on the 2 proposals. Again, the bylaw proposal 1 is kind of the cleanup one, and then the bylaw proposal number 2 is kind of the major restructuring of the zones. And then again, if approved, the board would have all of 2021 to help people kind of get used to what that new structure is going to look like and what the new zones will look like. When the nominating committee is elected in spring of 2021, they will know what those zones will be like and who they need to be working with and recruiting. It also gives an opportunity for the current board to see how do they fit into this new structure. We are likely going to have where we've got current board members who are now representing one zone who are going to be in another zone, and maybe there's 3 current board members in that newly formed zone. So again, then we look at the order that they're elected in, and so on. And then again, the new zones would take effect when the officer election process starts at the 2022 District Lodge meetings. So, so that is kind of the timeline for it. Again, we didn't want to kind of upset the apple cart halfway through this pandemic and so on, and really have to go back and try to, elect new board members and so on. So we didn't want it to take effect until that right before the officers start being elected, but then that way they would go to their caucuses and so forth in the new zones that they're representing. So that's a little bit of background. So we are going to again be taking all kinds of your input and feedback and so forth. We hope that this introduction kind of is helpful in helping you to understand kind of the process. It's a little bit complicated process. So I think the more that we can, share this information with people and make it available and give you the opportunity to ask questions, that way when those ballots go out to the current District Lodge members, they will understand and feel comfortable, hopefully, in that process. So thanks for tuning in, and we will hopefully visit with some of you on Saturday. And it's very likely that we'll also schedule another Zoom call, especially for the people serving as District Lodge members, to make sure that if there's any questions or there's discussion and so forth, that they have an opportunity to have that. So we will be in touch. So thank you.